collab from some professional musicians, and it sounds just like that. So praises goes to you, my guy.
Thank you.
So listen, I don't have any more questions for you, my guy.
Okay.
So we're winding this down. The first episode
of
the drum drop is winding down. But I did want to talk to you. Maybe you said you were a music history guy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about like some music history, like where music was, maybe when you talk about the Beatles to where it's at right now, like pop music or even the indie stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my dad has informed so much of my knowledge about old school rock and roll and all that. And so, I feel like people always talk about is rock and roll dead, that conversation. I feel like it's so different now, like being a musician. Like he would tell me these stories about being a Led Zeppelin fan back in the 70s. And like you heard Led Zeppelin's first album and you knew nothing about them, but it blew your mind because it was 1969 when it came out, and like the sounds were just incredible and the musicianship was incredible, and you never heard anything like it. But there was no internet, like you had no idea who these people were. Maybe there was an article in like a music magazine at a record store that was like 100% inaccurate that you'd read, and then all of a sudden, like maybe you'd see a poster or like hear on the radio a new single and it's like a new album is coming, and you had no idea what it was going to be about. You'd listen to the single, you'd get super excited, you'd wait and wait and wait, you'd run to the record store when it came out, buy it. All you had was this like square piece of like cardboard that had like a little information, a few pictures. You put the record on, like that's all you did for 45 minutes is listen to the song, and it would blow your mind, and then you'd have nothing new from them until like maybe they had a show in a city a few hours away, and you'd drive there and see the show, and it'd be this huge arena, and they'd look like gods, and you could barely see them, and then they'd leave, and like that's all you had. So there was such a scarcity of information about these artists that they could kind of like paint whatever picture of themselves they wanted to. So you had like rock gods where they seemed like more than human, because you had no idea how recording worked. You had no idea about like all these amps, and they were just making these sounds you didn't quite understand. And so it was much easier back then to kind of cultivate mystery and like appear superhuman almost. Like,
yeah, it's funny because I think you almost have to do the opposite now, right? Like
you
have to lean in hard on whatever social media is trending, or like whatever's happening. Like because I think it's interesting that people want to hear and see and be a part of like your band or your situation.
Yeah.
And, if you don't give that to them, you kind of get lost into the space of the other musicians that are willing to do that,
Well, yeah, so it's like, can there be rock stars anymore?
Oh, I think so.
You do?
I definitely think so. Like,
okay.
But it has to be so... and it's different for everybody, right? Like, what's a rock star to me, right? I could say, the Fleet Foxes just came out with a new album, right?
Yeah.
Like, that, for me, you guys are total rock stars,
okay,
like icons of like the genre that you're in. But it's hard. I guess you're right. Like I'm now.
Well, I think it's like there was such a monolithic culture back then. I don't think there'll ever be anything like the Beatles again, just because like how.
Yeah.
Like that cultural moment was so transformational. So like everything's so spread out, and it's so hard to cultivate that mystery, like you said. Like I'm trying to figure it out. Like how do I stay an artist while still sharing stuff on social media, then like trying to create art, not content. But like you can't create one social media post every 6 months,
like you got to be frequent,
at least maybe. I don't know how that actually works, you know.
Well, I was talking back show with another band that I got to see last weekend, and the lead singer was basically saying like, hey, you got to do this all the time, like every day. Like I don't have a job. Like this is it for me. I live with my parents, like, and I lean in all the time. All the time. So I'm constantly creating content. I'm constantly on social media, like pushing what we're doing. And it's like, man, like it opened my eyes a little bit. Opened my eyes a little bit, because I thought that, you like you did. You come play a show, you've got a good sound. Maybe you have people or out in the audience who like latch onto that, and they want to follow you, and they want to like, but again, like if you don't create the constant, you get lost.
No, absolutely. And I guess it can be very hard. I feel like you have to figure out like what your identity is, like what you are at the core, and then just like share that freely.
Yeah.
But like I feel like you can't work hard enough to make it happen. I feel like it has to just be natural.
Genuine.
Like, yeah, you have to,
genuine.
Exactly. You have to only share who you are and just like be open with it. It's not even about creating content. It's just like sharing your life.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure that out because like I'm not like a social media guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Would you ever think about maybe hiring one or like getting someone
I have, and it was the worst experience.
Really?
This is the biggest waste of money. I mean, because again, like I'm talking, like you want to share who you are. Like they're just content farms. They don't know. Like I just did one for a few months, and it was nothing but negative. Like they did not care who I was, about my music, about my art, and like I didn't pay them that much. I mean, like it was like I could have done a lot more productive things with that money. But to them, it's not like a yearly salary.
Yeah.
I'm just another person. And so they're not going to dig in too deep. I think I also had like a really bad company, just personally, or specifically, not the greatest people or the greatest at their job, which you're going to run into when you're just starting out. But yeah, I don't think it's something you should really spend a lot of money on. It just needs to be very organic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we went through the same thing with Alex Gray. Like we initially hired somebody to kind of run a social media account and like run up the numbers and like people click on your stuff or you show them and it's like, oh, this guy's got 20,000 followers or but you're right, like it's an inorganic thing that it almost feels, and the music industry is just that. Like, it's a meat farm, they're trying to like push people through, and so there's something really unique and fun to be said about like indie artists and like the passion that they have for the craft. And
I mean, I don't, like you say, the music industry, I don't even know if like what that means, because there's so many people just like doing their own thing, like
I would
you're
say, like label, right? Like if you're part of a label.
I mean, certainly that is a whole different direction, and at this point it's, I don't know a ton about what labels are doing, but it seems like they're just like tracking streaming numbers and social media following and like picking up artists who already have a following. But I feel like it's the Wild West right now.
Would you consider, if a label came to you but they said, hey, we want to kind of go in a different direction with some of the songs that you have, would you consider maybe picking up?
No, I don't think I'm at the level to even consider that yet. I feel like nowadays the only time you should talk to a label is when you've already built what you're doing and you have some leverage.
Gotcha.
Because I don't think the labels are that good at developing artists or making art that matters anymore. I feel like they're basically they have a lot of money. So they can like launch these campaigns and they can pay enough for an album to go number one for a weekend or something. But no, I feel like it's up to the artist these days. But that's just something I don't know that much about. I'm trying to learn more.
Well, here's hoping.
But
Here's hoping that we blow up here.
Exactly. This podcast.
What are some things that you're listening to right now? Anything that like sticks out to you?
I've honestly been trying to find that next thing. I think a while, like I've gone through spurts where I get really into certain artists. And like my first big spurt was like acoustic singer-songwriters, because I was learning a lot of finger-picking stuff, whether that be like James Taylor. And then I got really into like classic rock Americana singer-songwriters like Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty. Like I love Neil Young. And then I think the next phase was like kind of psych rock, old school rock and roll, and then like a lot of Nirvana in there too.
Of course, yeah.
And so I'm kind of waiting for the next big inspiring thing to hit me. If I had to predict, I feel like it would come almost more from like the Americana like country scene. Like I've really been listening to Zach Bryan lately, just because he's so simple. So many of his songs are just an acoustic guitar and his voice, and he just has a way of writing like really catchy, memorable lyrics. And I feel like I'm, through the process of writing this album, I'm kind of going back to the basics, really focusing on the song, because I love producing for other people. I have done it with, a few people's projects, but for my own stuff, I kind of want to more just be a songwriter,
Okay. Yeah, I know. It's for me, the Spotify dumps are the greatest, right? Like, if I find something that like if I'm cleaning the house, or I'm kind of like doing whatever, and like something comes on, I have to make sure like I like it. So, and then I'll find the radio for that like specific thing. And I found, and maybe this is some stuff that you can listen to.
Yeah.
I like what I'm listening to right now. Giant Rooks.
Okay.
So big, like I wouldn't even call them indie. Like they're a super great band out in I think Europe.
Okay.
Wildorado. Nice. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Okay. This is very man. I'm terrible with this kind of stuff, man. But it's basically kind of country, but also alt rock as well. So I like the twang. I like the twang that they have, and the dude's voice is just so unique. Nice. Very, very airy. Yeah. I'm from San Diego. I think you said you were from.
I'm from here.
Yeah. Okay, so Atlanta. Okay. Yeah. So but driving up and down the Coast Highway out in San Diego, like listening to that kind of stuff is just nostalgia, and so like anything that kind of like transforms that back into that moment or that memory for me, I latch onto. Got to hold on to.
Feel that.
But I do like more pop stuff too. Like Young the Giant is probably my favorite right now that I'm listening to. They're actually going to be in Charlotte.
Okay, nice.
I think July 15th. I don't think I'm going to be able to make the show, but I would love to. That'd be so nice. So nice. No, it's hard. I will say what you're doing is a very difficult thing. Trying to do it organically, very difficult thing. And you're doing it on your own.
Well, yeah. So. I mean, I really appreciate you starting this, having me on. Yeah. You know, I love opportunities to talk about my music and just music in general. So yeah. Dude,
I'm glad to have you on. This has been a really fun experience for me. I'm stoked to maybe do it again.
Yeah, man.
Later down the road, and maybe we'll get you back on when we find out how your album does. And again, this album titled I Wrote This Album Because I Love You. Again, just super good. About 10 songs on the album. And Jack, when is it coming out?
April 14th is the first single. All right. I remember when. And then I think I'm going to do one single a month for a while and then release the whole thing. So probably by September they'll all be out.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you can catch Jack Hamill. You want to plug any Instagram or?
Jack Hamill Music, Instagram, TikTok. JackHamillMusic.com is the old website.
Shout out to Mom. Nothing.
Shout out Mom.
Yeah, all right. There you go. Gotta shout out Mom.
For sure. Actually, that is something I do want to do because I feel like I talk about my dad a lot.
Yeah.
Just because he was the one who got me into music, but my mom's been just as supportive, if not more, you know?
Yeah, you gotta give.
So, sometimes I feel bad, because, she deserves credit, too.
Yeah. Well, that situation must have been incredibly tough on her, too.
All of us,
man.
Yeah, man.
So, good on you, man, for doing what you're doing. Don't lose the faith out there. Have fun.
Absolutely not. Keep it going.
Like I said, thanks again for being on my podcast, bro.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. You guys have been listening to The Drum Drop. I appreciate you guys if you guys stuck around. I've been talking to Jack Hamill, and like I said, great guy, creative artist. So please catch his music when it does come out. Appreciate you guys.
Right. Thank you, Jerry.
Yep.